Welcome to Twisted Truths, where betrayal meets brutal payback, and where the most unexpected twists expose what people are really capable of. This story isn't just shocking, it's personal. My name is Jason Harper, and I wasn't just seated in the hallway at my brother's wedding, I was erased. You know, it's funny how you can spend your whole life doing the right thing, being the reliable one, the calm in the storm, the dependable sibling. But when your family finally has a moment of grand celebration, the moment where all the lights are supposed to shine on us, you find yourself sitting alone, next to a coat rack. I arrived at the resort in Napa Valley early, just like they asked. I wore the nicest suit I owned, navy blue with a silver tie. I even shaved, which I almost never do unless I'm interviewing for a job or burying someone. That's how important the day felt. Ethan, my younger brother by 5 years, was marrying Olivia Bennett. Yeah, the Bennetts, of the Bennett Vineyards. They own half the valley and probably half the state's politicians. The wedding was more like a royal coronation. Chandeliers, white roses, string quartet, and tuxedos that probably cost more than my rent. But when I got to the guest list at the reception entrance, I couldn't find my name. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Then a young server smiled awkwardly and said, "Oh, Mr. Harper. You're seated in the auxiliary area, near the hallway." I laughed, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. She led me past the main banquet hall where all the guests were seated under sparkling lights and clinking champagne glasses, through a narrow corridor, and finally to a corner table next to a supply closet. No roses. No name card. Just a plain white tablecloth and a view of the fire extinguisher. My hands trembled when I sat down. Not with anger, at least not at first, but with a kind of shame that clings to your bones. I didn't belong. Again. Growing up, I was always the stable one. That's what my mother used to say. Jason doesn't need much. He always handles himself. That was code for, we don't have to worry about him, so let's forget him. Ethan was the golden child, literally. Blonde hair, blue eyes, soccer star, valedictorian, now a junior partner at some venture capital firm with $1 million smile. He didn't just walk into a room, he commanded it. And me? I'm a software engineer in a 2-bedroom apartment in Chicago. I write code and read books and sometimes get lonely in ways I can't describe to anyone. But I never asked for much. Just, to be seen. Just once. That day, I told myself to be the bigger man. It's his wedding, I whispered to myself like a prayer. Let him have his moment. But as the evening unfolded, and I watched my mother dote over Olivia like the daughter she always wanted, and my father toast to Ethan's brilliance, something inside me cracked. They hadn't just put me in the hallway physically. They had always put me there emotionally. And the worst part? They didn't even notice. Not when I walked through the banquet doors hoping to say hello. Not when I waved at Ethan and got a distracted half-smile before he turned back to some hedge fund guy. Not even when I stood in front of my own mother and asked, "Why am I seated out there?" Her response still plays in my head like a cruel echo. "Oh, Jason, don't make a fuss. The main hall is for close family and Ethan's important friends. You understand, right? Close family. I was his brother." Something broke in me then. Not a scream. Not a sob. But something quieter. More dangerous. A realization. They would never see me, not unless I made them. And that was the moment the story stopped being about my brother's wedding. It became the story of my revenge. I didn't walk back to that hallway table, I drifted there like a ghost. Past the laughter, the violin's sweetness, and the gleaming faces that had never held a place for mine. No one stopped me. No one even looked up. I sat down beside the coat rack again. A bowl of dry salad sat untouched on the table. A plastic cup of lukewarm water reflected the light above, and for a second, I stared into it like I was trying to find something, anything, that reminded me I mattered. But there was nothing. I looked through the glass partition into the banquet hall. My father was standing tall beside Olivia's father, his hand wrapped around a glass of expensive scotch. They were laughing, full belly laughs. I hadn't heard my father laugh like that since before my high school graduation, the one he missed because Ethan had a big game. My mother was sitting beside Olivia, fixing the bride's veil like she was her own. I remember thinking how soft her touch looked. How she used to do that with me when I was a kid, fix my collar, straighten my backpack, brush the crumbs from my cheek. I hadn't felt that softness in years. They looked like a perfect family. Just not mine. I pulled my phone from my pocket. Scrolled. Nothing. No missed calls. No messages. Not even a group chat from the family saying, "So glad you could make it." My chest tightened with something I had no name for. Was it grief? Rage? Emptiness? I opened my Photos app. There was an old picture from 3 years ago, Ethan and me, smiling after a hike in Colorado. That day, I paid for the gas, the hotel, the food. Ethan had forgotten his wallet. He thanked me with a fist bump. That was the last time we spent real time together. I remembered another picture. My 30th birthday. I had gone to a diner alone. My family forgot. Again. I sat there eating pancakes at 9 p.m., telling myself it was fine, that I didn't need anyone to celebrate me. That same night, my mother posted pictures of Ethan's promotion dinner. That was when it clicked. My despair wasn't new. It had been growing, silently and steadily, for decades. Like a leak in a roof you ignore until the whole ceiling caves in. I looked back toward the banquet hall again. Ethan was now on stage, holding the mic. He looked like a king up there, confident, charming, magnetic. Olivia beamed beside him. Everyone applauded. I didn't. He was thanking guests, making jokes about married life, thanking the Bennetts for their generosity. Then he paused. And of course, Ethan said, I have to thank my amazing family. Mom, Dad, you've always believed in me. And to my older brother, Jason, where are you, man? The spotlight didn't move. The crowd turned slightly, but no one found me. Guess he's hiding, Ethan laughed, brushing it off. Probably coding something brilliant. People chuckled politely. It wasn't cruel. But it cut. I sat still. Like a statue. Like a prop they didn't need until someone asked where it went. And in that moment, I realized I didn't want their version of family anymore. I didn't want the crumbs of affection tossed to me when convenient. I didn't want to keep showing up just to be dismissed. I wanted truth. And maybe I wanted a little destruction, too. I stood up slowly and made my way outside into the cool Napa air. The sun had just set, leaving streaks of lavender and gold across the horizon. The scent of vineyards filled the sky. It was beautiful. Too beautiful for what was building inside me. That's when I heard voices, a familiar one. Ethan's. He was talking to someone near the gift table. I ducked behind a marble column just instinctively, like I wasn't supposed to be there. But what I heard next made my blood run cold. She's smart, Ethan said, laughing, but not that smart. Give it a few months, she'll be wrapped around my finger. Her parents already are. A pause. A chuckle. I mean, do you know how long I've been planning this? The Bennetts have generational wealth. I'm not marrying into a vineyard, I'm marrying into an empire. His friend, Ryan, I think, laughed, a nervous edge in his voice. You're savage, man. What about the prenup? I'm working on it. Already asked their lawyer some hypotheticals. Just need to tweak a few clauses, she won't even notice. Besides, she's in love. That's the biggest blind spot of all. My hands clenched into fists. This wasn't just about me anymore. Ethan didn't just erase me from the wedding. He was about to erase Olivia's future. And her family's trust. I stepped forward, and the gravel crunched under my shoes. Ethan didn't notice. But someone else did. A soft click of heels behind me. I turned slowly. It was Olivia. Her face was pale. Her eyes, sharp, wide, furious, met mine. She didn't say a word. Just gave the faintest nod. She had heard enough. And that's when the despair cracked wide open. Into purpose. There's a kind of silence that screams. When Olivia turned her eyes on me, it wasn't a look of panic, it was clarity. The kind of clarity you get when a glass shatters, and you finally see the cracks that were always there. Her voice was calm, but low and trembling. "Jason, tell me exactly what you heard." I hesitated for a second. Not because I wanted to protect Ethan, I didn't, but because I knew what I was about to say would break her. And oddly, a small part of me still didn't want to be the person who did that. But Olivia wasn't fragile. Not like my family always assumed she was, some pretty doll in a perfect dress. She had steel behind her eyes now. "He said," I began slowly, "he was marrying you for your family's empire. That he's been planning it for a long time." She didn't blink. "He told his friend Ryan that you'd be emotionally dependent on him within months, that he already talked to your family lawyer about how to break the prenup if needed." Still, no tears. No dramatics. Just one single exhale. Like a balloon deflating in a quiet room. She turned away from me and stared out toward the horizon, toward the endless vineyards that her family owned, cultivated, preserved for generations. And for a few seconds, she said nothing. Her fingers tightened around the beaded clutch in her hand. Then she whispered, "That bastard." And just like that, she took out her phone. "Wait," I said, startled. "What are you?" "I need to confirm it." "I want to hear it from the lawyer himself," she replied, typing rapidly. She was dialing a number. Then putting the call on speaker. "Mr. Gilroy," she said when the man answered. "It's Olivia. I need you to answer something clearly, and immediately. Has Ethan Harper asked you, under any circumstance, about voiding or working around our prenup?" There was a pause on the line. Then a deep sigh. "Olivia, yes. He asked me last week about specific clauses. He said he was just curious, but the questions were very pointed, specifically about asset access in divorce scenarios." Her breath hitched. That was the first crack. "Thank you," she said, hanging up. I watched her standing there in her wedding gown, not crying, not falling apart, but shifting. It was like watching someone go from bride to battlefield general in 30 seconds flat. "Jason," she said, "I'm going to need your help." We went back inside. Not to celebrate, but to gather evidence. While Ethan floated between champagne glasses and conversations, Olivia quietly pulled aside Ryan. She didn't smile. She didn't fake warmth. She simply said, "You have one chance to tell me everything. If you lie, my father will bury your career in a heartbeat." Ryan cracked in under a minute. He admitted it all, Ethan's scheme, the plan to exploit the family's trust, the private jokes, the bragging. The fact that Ethan had told multiple friends that he was playing the long con by pretending to be the perfect man. She recorded every word. Then Olivia took off her engagement ring and placed it into my hand. "Hold this," she said softly. "I don't want it to touch my skin anymore." For a split second, I felt a flicker of something, like we were allies in a war only we understood. And in that moment, for the first time in years, someone had chosen me. Not as a background character. Not as a last-minute guest. But as a confidant. A witness. Someone who mattered. Later that night, Olivia summoned her parents and mine to a small, private room behind the banquet hall. I wasn't supposed to be there, but she insisted I come. Ethan showed up last, cocky as ever, until he saw Olivia's face. Her mother sat stiffly, hands clasped so tight her knuckles were white. Her father, Edward Bennett, glared at Ethan like he already knew what was coming. My own parents? They looked confused. Nervous. Ethan, Olivia said, her voice deceptively calm, Michael heard something earlier. I want him to repeat it. My pulse kicked up, but I spoke anyway. I overheard Ethan telling Ryan he planned to make Olivia emotionally dependent, that he asked the family lawyer about breaking the prenup, and that he was targeting the Bennett fortune. Gasps. Frozen stares. My mother clutched her pearls, looking between me and Ethan. Jason, surely you misunderstood. No, Olivia cut in sharply. He didn't. Then she pulled out her phone. And played the recorded call with the lawyer. Then the confession from Ryan. Ethan's face went from flushed red to ghost white. His lips parted. He tried to speak, but no words came. My father looked like the floor had fallen out from under him. My mother sat back in her chair as if the room were spinning. You told me you loved me, Olivia said quietly to Ethan. You told my parents you wanted to build a life with me. And all this time, you were building a con. Olivia. No. Don't, she snapped. You'll say whatever you need to spin it. But I already know who you are now. She turned to her parents. The wedding is off. Then, she turned to me. Jason, thank you. You didn't have to speak up. But you did. And because of that, I'm not walking into a trap. For a second, no one said a word. Then Ethan exploded. You ruined everything, he shouted. You've always been jealous of me. You wanted this moment, didn't you? To humiliate me. To tear this family apart. I didn't reply. Not with words. I just looked at my mother, and saw it. That same disappointed look she used to give me when I wasn't enough. But I didn't care anymore. Because this time, I had told the truth. And it was going to set someone free. Even if that someone wasn't me. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. But I didn't feel cold. I felt alive. Not in some triumphant, cinematic way, but in a quiet, aching way, like a man who'd just taken his first real breath in 30 years. I had spent a lifetime being invisible. Now, for once, the truth I carried actually mattered. But I wasn't the only one burned. Olivia didn't cry. She didn't run off in tears or throw herself into anyone's arms. She sat still, stone-faced, while Ethan raged and stammered and accused. And then she calmly said, "Everyone out." My mother blinked. What? I want a moment with Jason. Alone. The room emptied slowly, with Ethan being the last to leave, dragged out by Edward Bennett's security advisor like a frat boy getting bounced from a bar. The last thing he shouted was, "This isn't over." And he was right. It wasn't. The moment the door clicked shut, Olivia stood. She walked to the corner of the room and peeled off her earrings slowly, as if removing armor. Her hands were steady. Her voice was steel wrapped in silk. I'm not letting him just walk away. I said nothing. Because I knew she didn't mean emotionally. She meant legally. Financially. Socially. What he did wasn't just manipulation, it was fraud. He knew exactly what he was doing. Every sweet word, every fake gesture. It was all a setup to gain access to our estate. Her voice cracked on that last word, just slightly. My father's legacy. My grandfather's vineyard. My family name. I'm not letting him poison any of it. I nodded. I'll help in any way I can. She turned to me, her eyes softer now. I know you will. That's why you're here. She walked to her purse and pulled out a folded paper. I had my lawyer draft this when I first got suspicious weeks ago. A post-nup addendum. I never showed Ethan. It states that if any intention of fraud, manipulation, or financial coercion is found, he forfeits any claim to marital assets, even if we had married. I raised my eyebrows. You were preparing for this? She gave a hollow laugh. You don't grow up around legacy wealth without being trained to protect it. I hoped I'd never need it. But I kept it ready. I stared at her, not like the bride who had just walked away from a perfect fairy tale, but like a warrior queen. What do you want to do? I asked. She sat down across from me, hands clasped. I want to humiliate him, but not like he humiliated us. I want it to sting deeper. In front of everyone who matters to him. The Bennetts, the venture capital world, the Napa elite. She leaned forward. I want to reveal who he really is. But I need it to be airtight, public, undeniable, and irreversible. A plan began to form. The next day, Olivia moved fast. She arranged a formal statement with the Bennett family lawyer and gathered all communications Ethan had ever sent, emails, voicemails, even texts bragging to Ryan and others. I gave a full written affidavit of what I overheard, notarized. She also subpoenaed the prenup conversation records with the family lawyer. Turns out Ethan had left a digital trail of his inquiries. That was mistake number 1. Mistake number 2. Underestimating her. While Olivia handled the legal side, I worked behind the scenes. I contacted a few people in Ethan's business circle, people I knew from back when I still tried to impress the family. I let it slip that Ethan might be caught up in a PR disaster soon. I didn't say much. I just let the whispers start. People in wealth circles don't need much to panic. Whispers become wildfire. But the real move came a few days later. The Bennett family sent out a public statement. Not some vague cancellation notice. No, they went full force. A press release went out to the local society column, complete with sources close to the bride citing evidence of marital fraud and intention to breach financial protections. No names at first. Just implications. But in the Napa Valley elite, implications are louder than headlines. Then, Olivia scheduled a private, wine tasting event at the vineyard for 50 of the most influential people in the region. It looked like a rebound. But it was a setup. I showed up early to help her prepare. She was wearing a white pantsuit this time. No veil. No gown. Just sharp confidence and flawless control. You sure about this? I asked her, placing a bottle on the tasting table. She smiled faintly. No. But I'm ready. As the guests arrived, old money, business moguls, media connections, they were curious. The bride who called off the wedding was now hosting an event. Halfway through the tasting, Olivia stood up. I want to thank everyone for being here. I know recent events have raised questions. I'd like to clarify things. She then told the room everything. Not in a cruel way. Not with venom. Just facts. Ethan's scheme. His recorded conversations. The proof from her lawyer. The betrayal. Every guest sat silent. A few gasped. Some whispered. One older man in a Gucci jacket said, "Good God." Then Olivia did the final move. She pulled out the post-nup document. I never married him, she said. But had I done so, this document would have protected our estate. I advise every woman in this room, never sign anything without legal counsel. Even love should never be blind. Thunderous applause. And Ethan? He wasn't there. But he saw it. Because it was live-streamed privately to a list of select friends and family. And yes, that included him. The fallout? Brutal. His VC firm quietly removed him from all public portfolios. The Bennetts pulled out of a joint real estate deal that his company desperately needed. Invitations stopped. Messages dried up. And 1 week later, Ethan tried to call me. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. "You ruined my life." I played it once. Then deleted it. The first real blow landed 3 days after the wine tasting. I was in my Chicago apartment, sipping coffee by the window when Olivia called. Her voice was calm, but there was a thin layer of something beneath it, vindication, maybe. Check the Napa Journal. Page 6. I pulled it up on my phone. The headline nearly made me drop my mug. Bennett wedding scandal, groom allegedly plotted financial exploitation of bride's family estate. Subheadline, sources confirm prenuptial breach attempts. Groom's business relationships now in question. There was no picture. No direct name. But everyone knew. In the Napa elite, that was all it took. By nightfall, Ethan's face was on every gossip blog and whispered behind every glass of Merlot. The digital pitchforks came quickly, LinkedIn updates showing his role concluded at Whitestone Ventures, anonymous posts from former associates claiming they'd seen the signs, even a screenshot of him allegedly flirting with a different heiress 2 months before the wedding. I didn't know if that last one was true. I didn't care. Olivia didn't have to say another word. The plan had begun to execute itself. Meanwhile, my parents were unraveling. My mother called 4 times in a single day. I finally picked up the 5th time, more out of morbid curiosity than anything else. "Jason," she said immediately, her voice hoarse. "You need to fix this." "I didn't break it," I replied. "He's your brother. The world is crucifying him." "No, Mom. Ethan crucified himself. All I did was hold up the mirror." She paused. For the first time, I heard something rare in her voice. Not just anger. Fear. "He's staying in his childhood room," she whispered. "He hasn't eaten. He just sits and stares at the wall." I wanted to feel sorry for him. But I didn't. I remembered my 30th birthday, spent alone. I remembered the coat check hallway where they sat me during his wedding. I remembered the laughter at my expense, the dismissiveness, the way he said I should be grateful to be invited at all. And I realized, Ethan wasn't grieving. He was sulking. Mourning the loss of control. "I hope he finds himself," I said, then hung up. I didn't answer when she called again. Olivia, on the other hand, flourished. 3 media outlets asked her to speak about financial safety in relationships, and she agreed to one, a live-streamed Q&A hosted by a high-end women's finance forum. She didn't name Ethan, but she didn't have to. She looked composed, elegant, and unshaken. "This isn't just about heartbreak," she said. "It's about autonomy. Legacy. Boundaries." I watched the whole thing from my apartment, feeling proud. And a little stunned. The woman Ethan thought he could manipulate had just become the face of empowerment. And me? I was quietly being mentioned, too. A few whispers online about the brother who exposed the con. Someone even tagged me in a tweet, "Shout out to Jason Harper, ultimate silent king." I smiled. Not because I wanted attention. But because, for once, someone saw me. The next week, Ethan tried again. This time, he showed up. Unannounced. I was walking out of my building when I saw him, leaning against a rental car, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His suit was wrinkled. His hair a mess. No golden boy smile. Just desperation. "Jason," he said, standing upright. "Please. Just 5 minutes." I didn't want to. But some part of me needed closure. So we sat on the curb. "You win," he said first, hands clenched between his knees. "You finally did it. Took me down." "I didn't want to take you down," I said flatly. "I wanted to protect Olivia. And I wanted to stop pretending you were someone you're not." He let out a bitter laugh. You never forgave me, did you? For being the favorite. For getting the spotlight. No, I said. I never blamed you for that. I blamed you for what you did with it. He went quiet. Then, in a low voice, he said, I was drowning in debt. The firm, things weren't going well. I saw Olivia as a way out. I didn't think she'd ever find out. Because you thought she was stupid. I thought she was in love. I nodded slowly. She was. That's why it hurt her more than it ever could hurt you. He turned to me then, and for the first time in maybe a decade, I saw not the golden boy, but the broken man beneath him. I need help, he said quietly. I know, I replied. But not from me. He blinked, confused. You need to help yourself first, Ethan. I can't save you from this. Not anymore. And with that, I stood and walked away. Not in anger. Not in triumph. Just, peace. Because finally, I was choosing me. Later that night, I sent Olivia a message. He came to see me. Said he's drowning. But I didn't give him a lifeboat. I think he needs to tread water a little longer. She replied 5 minutes later. You did the right thing. Sometimes drowning is the first step to learning how to swim. Just when I thought the storm had passed, just when I felt like I could finally breathe, my phone rang. It was Olivia. Not her usual calm, measured tone. This time, she sounded shaken. Jason, we need to talk. Now. I sat up straight. What's wrong? It's not about Ethan, she said, her voice strained. It's about your mother. My blood turned to ice. We met that evening at a quiet cafe outside the city, one where nobody would recognize us or care. Olivia looked tired. She wasn't wearing makeup, and her usual composure had cracks in it. She slid her phone across the table to me. Listen to this. It was a voice message. From my mother. She must have thought she was sending it to Olivia's mother. But it ended up in Olivia's inbox by mistake. I pressed play. Lillian, I'm begging you to reconsider. The Bennetts and the Harpers have more to gain united than torn apart. I raised Ethan to be successful. Yes, he made mistakes, but we all have. Olivia's smart, she can rein him in. And your family would still be protected financially. Jason doesn't understand the bigger picture. He never has. He's just bitter. Please don't throw this alliance away over one misunderstanding. My throat closed up. I listened again. And again. Every word was a betrayal. My own mother, after everything, was still trying to fix things for Ethan. Still trying to salvage the alliance. Still throwing me under the bus like I was nothing more than the bitter, jealous brother. I didn't know if I should show you, Olivia said quietly. But you deserve to know what's still happening behind your back. I sat there, numb. Every childhood flashback came rushing in like a tidal wave, the missed birthdays, the dismissive praise, the endless deference to Ethan. She'll never stop protecting him, I whispered. Olivia nodded. And she'll never see you for who you really are. Because if she did, she'd have to confront who she really is. I didn't call my mother. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just wrote a letter. I kept it short. Dear Mom. I heard your message. The one meant for Mrs. Bennett. You've made it clear who matters most to you. Who always did. That's okay. I'm no longer asking to be seen. I see myself now. Tell Ethan I hope he learns something from this. But I won't be a part of the next fallout. Please don't contact me again. Love, Jason, the one in the hallway. I folded it, slid it into an envelope, and mailed it to their house in Napa. I imagine she cried when she read it. I imagine she tore it up. I don't care. That letter wasn't for her. It was for me. A week later, Ethan emailed me. Subject line, the truth. It wasn't long. Jason. You were right. I don't expect forgiveness. But I want to tell you something. Mom was the one who convinced me to pursue Olivia. She said it was time I'd married up. She said I deserved more than just a paycheck, that I needed legacy. That it would fix everything. I didn't plan it all alone. She helped me shape it. I was the weapon. She was the hand that pointed it. You were always the only honest one in this family. I hated you for that. I don't anymore. Ethan. I stared at that email for hours. Then I hit delete. I didn't reply. Because I finally understood, it was never just Ethan. It was the family system. The hierarchy. The favoritism. The manipulation. I had spent years blaming my brother. But it was my mother who shaped the game. Ethan just played it better. I met Olivia again that weekend. We walked through a quiet part of the city park, the autumn wind tugging gently at her coat. She handed me a small box. What's this? I asked. Closure, she said. I opened it. Inside was her wedding ring, the one I had once held for her when everything fell apart. I'm donating it, she said. Auctioning it off next week for a charity that helps women escape financial abuse. That's perfect, I said, stunned. She smiled. I just wanted you to be the last person to see it before I let it go. For a moment, we stood in silence. Then she said, do you ever think about what might have happened if Ethan had been sincere? I thought about it. Then shook my head. No. Because if he'd been sincere, I'd still be invisible. She nodded. And just like that, the silence between us wasn't painful anymore. It was peaceful. It's strange how the most defining moments of your life don't come with fanfare. No fireworks. No dramatic background music. Just a quiet morning, a cup of coffee cooling in your hand, and the sudden, sobering realization, I made it through. That's how I felt the day I opened my window and didn't flinch at the sunlight. A month had passed since Olivia dismantled Ethan's carefully constructed life. Since I mailed my final letter to my mother. Since Ethan's confession confirmed the one thing I had never wanted to believe. That my own mother had groomed him to prey on someone else's legacy. I had walked away from all of them. And for the first time in years, I wasn't haunted by it. I was free. Olivia had become a symbol of resilience. Her charity auction made headlines, especially after she announced that every cent from her former engagement ring would go toward helping young women get financial independence training and legal support. She invited me to the auction gala. I went. Not as a date. Not as a shadow. But as a guest of honor. When she introduced me on stage, she called me the quiet shield who stepped in when no one else did. I didn't give a speech. I didn't want to. But afterward, she pulled me aside and said something I'll never forget. Jason, you didn't just save me. You reminded me what it feels like to be seen. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Because for once, I felt it too. I never heard from Ethan again after that last email. Rumors say he moved out of Napa and tried starting over somewhere in Arizona. Olivia's family declined to press formal charges, but they did block him from ever accessing their network again. That alone was a financial death sentence in his circles. He vanished from LinkedIn. I heard through a friend that he's working under a different name now. No more tailored suits or golf with CEOs. Just a guy trying to stay under the radar. Let him rebuild, I thought. Or let him disappear. Either way, it's no longer my responsibility. I spent too many years making excuses for a brother who would have sold out our souls for a seat at someone else's table. I'm done carrying him. And my mother? She sent me one last letter. It was handwritten. 2 pages long. Full of excuses, half apologies, and the same emotional manipulation she'd perfected over the years. I didn't read it. I burned it. Ashes don't beg for attention. They just drift away. I moved to Colorado 2 weeks ago. It wasn't a spontaneous decision. I'd dreamed of it for years but always found a reason to stay: family obligations, guilt, the need to be available in case Ethan or my parents needed me. But not anymore. I rented a small cabin near Estes Park. Nothing fancy, just wood floors, tall windows, and a view of the mountains that makes me feel like I'm standing at the edge of something bigger. I hike now. Almost every morning. No headphones. No distractions. Just breath, movement, and silence that doesn't feel heavy anymore. I'm learning how to live without being defined by someone else's shadow. How to build a life not around proving my worth, but simply being at peace with it. And oddly, I think I'm happy. Last week, I got an email. From Olivia. No subject line. Just 2 sentences. I'm heading to DC for a new venture. Something big. Maybe I'll visit Colorado after it launches. I hope your trails are treating you kindly. I smiled. Not because I was hoping for romance. But because she didn't say goodbye. She said maybe. And in this new life of mine, maybe is enough. Because maybe means hope. And hope, after everything, is the most beautiful kind of justice. In the end, truth has a way of surfacing, even if it comes twisted through pain and betrayal. As one wise voice once said, sometimes your greatest enemy was once your closest ally. If this story struck a chord with you, let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, share, and spread the word, because justice deserves to be heard.